Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. What a jam-packed Wednesday we have for you today. A lot of things going on in the National Football League between the last time I spoke with you on Monday and today. It's Wednesday, and so a lot of things have transpired, a lot of things to get to, a lot of things that I didn't get to a while back that I might have forgot about that I need to go over today. So we'll get through all of those things today here in the lab room. I thank you for joining me, and let's get right to it. O.C. Umenyiora is now an Atlanta Falcon officially. He's been talking to the Falcons for about a week now. We've seen this coming. We knew this was inevitable. It just needed to finally be finalized, and it has been done. So now he's going to be in Atlanta for the next 2 seasons, signed a 2-year deal to be an Atlanta Falcon. And I had a buddy of mine ask me, was this really an upgrade for the Falcons? And I told him yes. And the numbers don't bear that to be the truth. It does not state that at all. You look at O.C. Umenyiora's 2012 campaign, 6 sacks. You look at John Abraham's campaign in 2012, 10 sacks, and you look and you say, was that a good trade-off for the Falcons? I think it was, because I think that O.C. Umenyiora wasn't mentally where he needed to be in New York. And when you're not mentally where you need to be, on the field, your play is going to suffer because of it. And so I felt like all of the circumstances in New York really didn't allow him to play his best football. Thought that he was worried about the contract. He finally got it, but it wasn't really a situation where he knew, hey, I'm going to be here for the next 3 or 4 seasons. He felt like he was on borrowed time in New York, and I don't think he was ever mentally where he needed to be to play the best football that he could possibly play. And so I think this move for him into Atlanta on a fast track in a dome, on a surface that's going to allow him to get off the football fast, is going to be a very good situation for O.C. Umenyiora. I think he's going to get back to his ways of being not a dominant pass rusher, but I think he's going to be a very serviceable pass rusher. Better than 6 sacks, I tell you that much. And also, the element that he brings to the table that a lot of guys don't in the league is that he forces fumbles when he gets to the QB. And so I think he's going to not only get to the quarterback in the 2013 season, I think he's going to force turnovers when he gets there. And that's the thing the Falcons are looking for. More opportunities for this offense to get their hands on the football. And I think O.C. Umenyiora is a guy that can do that. So we're looking at a 2-year, $12 million deal potentially. Right now it's $8.5 million over those 2 seasons. However, this thing has a chance to escalate to about $12 million over 2 seasons. He's guaranteed $5 million in this deal, and so we'll see what O.C. Umenyiora can do for the Atlanta Falcons. Look at another move made today, and there were several moves that were made over the course of the day that this seemed like a very busy NFL day. It's funny, just a random Wednesday, and we get a lot of news. But the Cowboys finally got on the board in free agency, and don't know how they were able to do it, but they finally got on the board. Justin Durant, now a Cowboy. Will Allen, now a Cowboy. Remember, they had 3 guys come and meet with them when they were window shopping. Justin Durant and Will Allen were 2 of the 3 guys that came when they were window shopping. The other was Michael Huff. They missed out on Michael Huff, however, and they needed both of those safeties, Will Allen and Michael Huff. They probably would have preferred to have Huff instead of Will Allen. They had to settle for Allen instead. And Huff ended up moving on to Baltimore. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But they got some positions of need handled with Durant. And look, I think that the linebacker position for the Cowboys might be one of the most talented positions on their football team right now. You talk about Bruce Carter, Sean Lee, and DeMarcus Ware. And not to mention they have Anthony Spencer, who they are franchising at this very moment. And so the Cowboys have talent at the linebacker position, but you can never have enough talent at the linebacker position. And we saw this last season with the Cowboys when they were decimated by injuries at that very linebacker position. Sean Lee missed a good portion of the season. So did Bruce Carter. DeMarcus Ware was battling injuries all season long. And really the only guy that was healthy was Anthony Spencer. And so you need linebackers, especially when you play a 3-4 defense. Justin Durant is going to give them that flexibility at the linebacker position. They also re-signed Ernie Sims, did the Cowboys. And so they're going to have guys that can fill in and start if, in fact, guys aren't healthy in the 2013 season. So huge moves for the Cowboys. And it's about time they got on the board. Will Allen is going to help that very suspect safety position. Again, is he the answer? Probably not, but he'll help. And they need a lot of help at the safety position. The Cowboys are really reaching for help right now. So we'll see how this safety position shapes up. They still got Barry Church, and they still have a young guy that they have, Johnson, that they drafted last year. And so we're going to see how that looks at the safety position. But Will Allen will be there to fill in for them if, in fact, they need a guy to step in and start. But they really wanted Michael Huff. They just missed out on him. They didn't have enough money. Michael Huff was looking for X amount of dollars. Cowboys couldn't fork that over at this current time. He moved on, and he's in Baltimore now. And now the Baltimore Ravens, who really looked like a team that was in transition, that was going to really feel the ill effects of losing so many guys from their Super Bowl championship roster, all of a sudden now are starting to make moves again in Ozzie the Ravens' trust. And looks like Ozzie Newsome is slowly putting the pieces of the puzzle back together. You lose Donnell L.A.B. You lose Paul Kruger. So what do? You go out and get a guy like Elvis Dumervil. That's going to soften that blow a little bit. You lose Ed Reed. You lose Bernard Pollard. So what do? You go out and get a guy like Michael Huff. Not saying that these are equal parts. I think Elvis Dumervil is actually an upgrade over Paul Kruger, but I think Kruger has more of an upside, and he's going to be a guy that long-term might be a better option in Baltimore. But he's gone now. Elvis Dumervil is going to be a better short-term option, and that's what you're looking for. Give me here and now. I'll figure out what I need to do later on down the road to fix whatever problems I may have. But right now, Elvis Dumervil is a good option, and so is Michael Huff. Now, again, Huff isn't an upgrade over Ed Reed. However, long-term, maybe he is, because Ed Reed only has about a good 2 seasons left. Michael Huff can give you about a good 3, 4, maybe even 5 seasons. Who knows what Michael Huff has left in the tank. We'll see what Michael Huff can do in Baltimore. He was in a losing situation in Oakland, never really flourished in that environment. Maybe a change of scenery is exactly what Michael Huff needs to reach his maximum potential in the National Football League. We will see. He's been given the opportunity now to show what he can do. He's on a big stage with the Ravens, Super Bowl champions. They have the target on their back. They have the bullseye squarely set on their helmets. What will they do? What will Michael Huff do? What will Elvis Dumervil do? What will these new additions do? How will they help the Ravens? We will see. But again, nice moves by the Ravens to try and bridge that gap that they have left from all of the starters that they lost from a season ago. So now let's move on to the before I forget category. Sebastian Vollmer has re-signed with the New England Patriots. And I should have been talked about this a while back. But again, that was one of those moves that kind of slipped under the radar because he was supposed to be one of those guys that once a guy like Jake Long signed his deal with the Rams, then the dominoes were supposed to fall. He was supposed to go. Andre Smith was supposed to go. And Eric Winston was supposed to go. And all of a sudden now, guys just didn't. And when the money starts to drop in free agency, that's exactly what happens. You overvalue your worth on the market. Teams don't have as much money as they had when the market first began, when things first opened up. And all of a sudden now, you got to go crawling back to the team that either allowed you to hit the streets to find out what your value was, or you have to take considerably less than what you were looking for at the outset of free agency. And so Sebastian Vollmer was one of those guys that had to go crawling back to the Patriots, which is not necessarily what he wanted to do. He didn't have a problem going back to New England. He just wanted to command more money on the market. Well, what he was looking for wasn't available, and so he had to go back to New England, and they were willing to pay him a considerable amount of money. Maybe he would have liked more money, but he got a solid deal from the Patriots, and so he's back in New England, a good move for the Patriots. And so I think both parties involved are satisfied with the way things unfolded. Maybe Vollmer would have liked more money. Who doesn't like more money? But at the end of the day, he's back in a familiar situation with a team that has a winning pedigree, and he's being paid a solid amount of money. So I think this worked out good for both parties involved. Patriots get their man back, he gets paid. And so Sebastian Vollmer is back with the New England Patriots. You look at another quiet move that if you're not paying attention, really could fly under the radar and you wouldn't even notice. Chase Blackburn is no longer a New York Giant. He is now a Carolina Panther. And the Giants are a team that need linebackers. Boley is now gone. Not to say that he was a world beater, but he's gone now. You take Chase Blackburn out of the mix, and really, what do you have at the linebacker position if you are the New York Giants? They've got some moves to make because either you need to attack this through the draft or you need to go out in free agency and address this. And I tell you what, there's not a lot of quality starting linebackers in this league available in free agency anymore. And so there are guys like Carlos Dansby and guys like that available. And so that's what the Giants need to be thinking about right now. Who can we target in free agency that can help us right now? And do we need to address this early on in the draft? Because I don't really know what direction they're going in at the linebacker position. They re-signed Keith Rivers. What does Keith Rivers do for you at the linebacker position? Can you start Keith Rivers and feel confident that A, he's not going to get injured, and B, that he's actually going to be able to come in and play at a starting caliber level for you? I think that we kind of know the answers to both of those, but you just don't know. But if you're the Giants, that hurt. Chase Blackburn was a really good player for your team, instrumental in you winning the Super Bowl, not once, but twice. And I think that this one stings because he was starting to really play at a really high level for the Giants. And now he's gone. And so we'll see what the Giants decide to do. They did sign Dan Connor, so maybe they kind of saw the writing on the wall that Chase Blackburn wouldn't be back. But again, is Dan Connor a guy that you want to start? He was solid in Carolina. He was okay for the Cowboys last season. But is he a guy that you want to start for 16 games? Does he make a difference? I'm not sure. We'll see what the Giants decide to do with their situation. But Chase Blackburn is now a Carolina Panther. We look at Jason Campbell now. I thought he was going back to Chicago. I thought the Bears wanted him back. I thought Jason Campbell wanted to be back in Chicago. Turns out that Jason Campbell has moved on to the Cleveland Browns. Good for him. It's a solid move for Jason Campbell. I think he's in a situation where he could potentially start again. I think he realized in Chicago, if I ever want to start in this league again and actually be the guy, it won't happen in Chicago. Now, look, I'll probably get my chance to start and play in 2 or 3 games because Cutler at some point is going to get a concussion, or he's going to turn an ankle, or he's going to jam a finger, and he's going to have to miss 2 weeks. I'll get to start at some point, but I actually want to be the guy again. And he's running out of time to do that, and really I don't think anyone should turn their franchise over to Jason Campbell again. But if there's a situation in the league where that could happen, it's a place like Jacksonville or Cleveland. Because this new regime in Cleveland, they're not sold on Brandon Weeden. And I think that they need to give him every opportunity to allow him to show them that he can be the guy in Cleveland. But they've already come out and said, look, we're not tied to Brandon Weeden at all. So if he struggles, Jason Campbell will be right there in the wings waiting for an opportunity to possibly start again in this league. And so with all the talent in Cleveland, I don't think that was a bad move on the part of Jason Campbell at all. In fact, I thought that was a very shrewd, calculated, and smart move by Jason Campbell, which will give him the opportunity to potentially start in the 2013 season at some point and take over as the Browns starter. Who knows? We'll see how that unfolds, but I think it's a great move for both the Browns and Jason Campbell because you get a competent backup quarterback in Jason Campbell, and if you're Campbell, you have the potential to start again if Brandon Weeden isn't successful in Cleveland. Now, what that says to me is Colt McCoy is probably on his way out of Cleveland. Right now, the word out of Cleveland is, hey, we're not releasing anyone. But how often do we hear someone say, hey, we're not doing this, and then 2 days later, that actually happens? So we'll see if Colt McCoy is going to be a Brown for much longer, but I think it's a great move for both the Browns and Jason Campbell, who is now a backup quarterback in Cleveland. Now, that hurts the Chicago Bears. They got to search for a backup now. Find them a true backup. Jason Campbell was that, even though he did not perform well for them in the 2012 season. He didn't have a good offensive line in front of him. I think with the upgrades to the line for the Bears, they need to find a solid backup quarterback that when Jay Cutler goes down, because it's not a matter of if anymore with Cutler, it's when he goes down. You need a guy to be able to step in for that 2 to 4 week period and get you 2 or 3 victories in that span and not go 1-3 and have your season be turned upside down when Jay Cutler is no longer in the lineup as your starting quarterback. So a lot of different dynamics, a lot of moving pieces and moving parts right now in the National Football League. You look at another quiet move, and this one not that high on the Richter scale. Doesn't register as a move that really needs to be talked about that much, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Greg Jones, the longtime fullback in Jacksonville, shifts over to another team in that very same division, to the Houston Texans. Remember, the Texans lost James Casey in free agency to the Philadelphia Eagles. They needed to replace him. Look, Arian Foster needs someone to block in front of him. Greg Jones is more than capable of doing that. His issue now is just staying healthy. When he was healthy in Jacksonville, he was a guy that opened up huge holes for Maurice Jones-Drew, but he needs to stay healthy. He was phased out of the offense in Jacksonville. Now he's going to get an opportunity in Houston to show what he can do. He needs to come back, play really well, stay healthy, and he'll stay on the field because the Houston Texans need a guy out of that backfield that can block for Arian Foster. They loved it when they had Vontae Leach. He moved on. Now they've got a guy that can do that in Greg Jones. They lost a little bit of versatility when they lost James Casey because Greg Jones isn't the pass catcher out of the backfield. He's not going to be able to really run the rock for you like you would like him to, but he's going to block. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to do just that for the Houston Texans. So that's a touchdown. Go ahead and throw it up. I'm going to tack on this quick extra point. Let's get to some quickies before we get out of here. The Dolphins are not finished in free agency. I told you that about 2 or 3 days ago that, hey, this Dolphins team is not done in free agency. And at that time, they were still looking at guys like Osi Umenyiora and Brent Grimes. They are not done. Brent Grimes could still potentially be in play in Miami. And they went out and signed themselves a guard in Lance Lewis, the former Chicago Bears guard, who was playing really well in the 2012 season until he tore his ACL. He's now a Miami Dolphin. And the Dolphins still have both of their guards on the roster. But I could easily see Lance Lewis filling in for one of those guys. Okay? Neither one of those guys were world beaters at the guard position. I think he's an upgrade over either one. I don't know how strongly the Dolphins feel about their guard position, but I think that they felt the need to go out and get a guy like Lance Lewis. So that lets me know that they feel like they can upgrade there. And so I think Lance Lewis is going to come in. He's going to compete for a starting position. And I think come opening day, it would not surprise me if Lance Lewis is your week 1 starter at probably that right guard position. Would not surprise me one bit. But another move by the Dolphins, again, trying to better themselves in the 2013 season, have made a bunch of moves in this offseason to really supplement their roster. Now, I think they're targeting a guy like Brent Grimes to come in and really shore up and fortify that cornerback position. And then I think they'll be done with free agency if they can get their hands on a guy like Brent Grimes. They'll start focusing in on the draft and what they can do there to really help their team from that aspect. But I think the Dolphins made a very solid move in getting their hands on a guy like Lance Lewis at the guard position. Also, before I get out of here, the Raiders released veteran defensive tackle Tommy Kelly. And this one was a move that was a long time coming. Surprised that they didn't do this earlier. When they released Darius Hayward-Bay. When they released Michael Huff, I thought Tommy Kelly would be not too far behind. I thought Rolando McClain would not be that far behind. But it seems like the Raiders decided to wait. And I don't know if they were hoping that they could hold on to Tommy Kelly or if they just said, hey, when the moment's right, we'll just let him go then. I don't know what the thinking was there. I feel like they really hindered Tommy Kelly's ability to go out and earn some money because they waited till the money dried up to release Tommy Kelly. And so don't know if there was some kind of ulterior motive there by the Raiders, if this was a message to Tommy Kelly or not. I think Tommy Kelly was a core Raider. He was a guy that has been there for the longest time of any Raider that's on that roster currently. And so I don't know if there was any extra meaning to when he was released. I may be reading into it too much, but all I know is Tommy Kelly is now on the market, yet there's not a lot of money on the market to be had. And so we'll see what Tommy Kelly is able to do because I think there is some football left in Tommy Kelly. Unlike a guy like Richard Seymour where I think it's not a lot of football left there. I think he has chronic knee issues, and I think that someone is probably going to grossly overpay for Richard Seymour. I think you just need to let Seymour walk away. If you're going to sign anyone at the defensive tackle position, Tommy Kelly might be your best option. But if you're looking for a guy that can come in and be really solid for you, I think Richard Seymour, he's on his last legs, literally, in the National Football League. And I think that the Raiders knew that this was going to be something that they had to do. I mean, Tommy Kelly was scheduled to make $5 million this season, and they need all the cap space that they can get. They went out and signed Pat Sims. They went out and signed Vance Walker. And so I think the writing was on the wall for Tommy Kelly. He knew this was coming. I just question the timing of it. I don't know. I can understand why they would want to hold on to Rolando McClain. He's a knucklehead. He's been getting in trouble off the field. I can see why they would want to stick it to him, hold on to him until the very last moment, and then let him go when it'll be hard for him to find work because he's a young linebacker that someone will be willing to take a chance on. So instead of allowing him to go out and seek greener pastures and earn a nice amount of money, the Raiders want to ensure him that, hey, you were a terrible guy in our locker room. You were a malcontent, and not to mention you were a wasted first-round pick that never amounted to anything on our football team. You're going to pay in more ways than one for not being accountable for your actions here in Oakland. And so they're going to hold on to Rolando McClain to the very last second and then release him and make it that much harder for him to A, find work, and B, make a lucrative amount of money. And so it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds, but Tommy Kelly is no longer an Oakland Raider. And that's going to do it for this installment of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. I told you it was a jam-packed show, a lot to get to. We covered it all. Feel good about what we were able to accomplish in this episode. There's many ways to contact the show. There's Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. There's Twitter. At In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Don't be afraid to like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter. Also, there's YouTube. Louie T is the page. LOUIETEE. Subscribe to the page if you haven't already done so. There's a lot of content coming out of this page. And again, I cover the NFL from wall to wall on this program. Every single team in the National Football League is covered. So you'll hear from your team on this show at some point. Please subscribe to the page if you haven't already done so. And at last, there's the inbox. In the Lab Room at gmail.com is the inbox. Drop something in the inbox if you want to talk to me directly. The easiest way, though, to talk to me is to post a comment on the bottom of any video that you watch. I will respond to you because it comes directly to the inbox. But if you want to bypass all of that and come directly to the inbox, feel free. I'll see it either way and respond to you. Thank you for joining me here in the Lab Room. Want to see you back here, same time, same place. And as always, have a good one. See you tomorrow.